Yeah. Good morning. First, I want to express my condolences to the family of the woman who died as a result of the storm over the weekend in Keokuk County and others that have been injured. It's my understanding the family has not yet been totally notified, so the name has not been released. But our thoughts and prayers are with her family and with all the people who have suffered losses as a result of the series of storms. Today, we have a significant economic development announcement, as this is something that we've been working on for some time. I'm pleased to officially introduce you to Iowa's first 4 certified sites. Congratulations to Dexter, Fort Dodge, Iowa Falls, and Van Meter for achieving this important distinction. And we have representatives from those communities that are in the audience today. As you might remember, the Iowa Economic Development Authority launched an initiative in May of 2012 called Iowa Certified Site Program. Through this program, designed by nationally recognized site selection firm McCollum Sweeney Consulting, Iowa sites could go through a rigorous process with the ultimate goal of reaching this development-ready certification. It was necessary, and it's not easy. It was a difficult process, and it didn't happen overnight. In fact, these communities have been working on this for nearly 2 years. But as they say, anything in life worth having is worth working for. Today, we recognize the hard work of the first 4 communities to achieve the seal of approval that is being named Iowa Certified Site. The economic developers in these local communities have invested countless hours and valuable resources over the past 2 years to put these sites into the best possible position to attract economic development opportunities. The competition for job creation projects is steep. So it's essential that Iowa looks to every possible advantage that we can have. We've been successful, but this is just one more thing that's going to make us even more successful. That's why today's announcement is about putting Iowa locations at the top of the list for economic development. With that, I want to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds to tell you more.
Good morning, and thank you, Governor Branstad. I also would like to congratulate Dexter, Fort Dodge, Iowa Falls, and Van Meter. This is quite an accomplishment, and one that will not only pay dividends for the community, but for the entire state as well. Achieving this certified site designation makes your site highly marketable and essentially risk-free. Companies today are conducting their site searches on an aggressive timeline, and the sooner that they can begin their projects, the sooner they can get to work and to realize what their business goals are, and that's to be up and running and being viable in the state of Iowa. That's why site certification is a growing national trend, and certification says a site is development ready to go. Certification means that the due diligence has been completed and any potential issues have been mitigated. That is very desirable for projects that Iowa is competing for. One of the most important parts of the Iowa Certified Site Program is that it is designed to parallel progress a site selector would take really in evaluating the site. That's why we partnered with a nationally recognized site selection firm, McCollum Sweeney, to serve as our official third-party certifier. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Kimberly Williams with McCollum Sweeney to give you a little bit more on the details. Kimberly?
Good morning. McCollum Sweeney Consulting is honored to be a part of this important initiative in Iowa. The site selection process is exhaustive, and therefore the site certification process should be as well. Rigorous site certification standards were developed based on the needs of private sector companies. The certification process requires documentation of 3 key areas. A site must be available. It must truly be for sale with its established price and terms. It must be servable. Both utility and transportation infrastructure must be either at the site or a detailed plan must be in place, including a cost and schedule. And a site must be developable. 5 core due diligence studies are required as part of the certification process. So congratulations to the first 4 Iowa communities to meet certification standards.
And now Debbie Durham is going to be the wrap-up hitter for us.
No pressure there. Well, Governor, thank you, and Lieutenant Governor and Kimberly, thank you for joining us as well. Having McCollum Sweeney as a partner in this effort is simply critical to its success. The expertise that they bring to the process, as well as the national attention they can deliver for Iowa's certified sites, is invaluable. Although much work has been done by these 4 communities to achieve certification, the next phase of landing projects to locate at these sites is just beginning. Having sites like those in Dexter, Fort Dodge, Iowa Falls, and Van Meter that are development ready means that they are projects ready so that marketing can begin. Today we are giving notice to site selectors and corporate real estate executives that these Iowa sites can get their projects up and running very quickly, and we have mitigated the site risks. Put simply, certified sites give us an edge on competition, and you all know how competitive Iowa is these days. So in addition to today's announcements, we'll be featuring all certified sites, beginning with these 4 on IEDA's website. We will also call attention to these properties through a paid print and online campaign, and we will work with these 4 communities to conduct some joint direct marketing to niche targets for each site. Building our certified site program is critical to Iowa's continued success. Since 2011, IEDA has assisted projects that are expected to result in over $8.8 billion of capital investments. However, we have lost deals because we were unable to move at the speed of business. So by continuing to certify sites, we will put our state in a position to keep landing those projects well into the future. Today is a great day to celebrate our first 4 sites becoming certified. It's made even better to know that several other communities are working their way towards certification as well. And I can tell you, we expect that this time next year there will be 11 additional sites that will be certified throughout our great state. It is my goal to have a certified site in every county of Iowa. Now that will send a message to the world that Iowa is ready. Thank you.
Well, Debbie, thank you very much, and we take questions on this subject first. Yes, sir.
How long, what do you see as a window for these sites to be have businesses? And if you can do this in rural Iowa, places like Iowa Falls and Webster County, can you predict, for example, if you go out and do this on an aggressive basis, that you could locate a lot of business and industry there within like the next 4 or 5 years or something like that?
Sure. Well, absolutely.
Would you predict,
Well,
for example, that there's going to be, that these sites will be purchased and populated by businesses within the next 2 years?
if you build it, they will come. That's a famous old saying from Field of Dreams, but there's a lot of truth to that. If you're ready, if you have the site prepared, I think that makes a huge amount of difference, because a lot of these economic development or economic developers, these site selectors, they're looking for a site that's ready. Once they make a decision, they want to be able to move very quickly. They also want the permitting process to be swift and a lot of other things. So you really have to have your ducks in a row, so to speak. This will make it possible for us to be much better prepared. I think we've already done very well, but I think we're going to be able to do even better with this.
How much did it cost to get the certification, and was any of that for local communities? And also, as a quick follow-up, you said there's a advertising print ad.
Yes. Well, first of all, we have allocated $400,000, and it came out of the high quality jobs. And any time that we presented our budget to the legislature, we always singled that out, that this was the intention of spending the money. The $400,000, about $244,000 to date has been spent on the consulting, which is McCollum and Sweeney. And then the rest of it is basically earmarked towards marketing. But here's what I will tell you. You know, we did an RFP and an RFQ, if you will, and we interviewed about 5 or visited with about 5 firms to do it. it. I have to tell you, McCollum Sweeney is like the J.D. Power Award of site certification. This is the group you want to do it. And let me show you, when you talk about our costs, the state's paying for the certification and the consultant, and we're paying for the marketing, in addition to the communities. This is what the communities have to do. And that's why it takes 2 years to do that. This is an extremely heavy lift, because what they're doing is taking all the risk out of that site development. They're looking at the air permitting, they're looking at the archaeological, they're making sure there's no wetlands that they have to mitigate. Everything you want to know about that site is in this book. So the cost to a community varies per site depending on how large, but it is a significant cost to the communities to participate in this.
In terms of time, they're not
Right.
paying.
No, well, they have to pay engineers to do a lot of the preliminary stuff, so they're hiring consultants. They usually have to have options on the land that they're paying for if they don't own the land outright, because what is it, we want a 5-year option, is that correct?
It's a minimum of
5 years.
but we can certify for up to 5
5
years.
Well, and this, by the way, this is just Iowa Falls, Hardin County. So all 4 of them have books like that.
There's no mention of workforce evaluation available. Is that up to the company or is that part of it?
Well, actually, that's not specifically part of this, okay, because this is strictly site. But we know before we can put a project development, that's why we use the labor sheds that workforce development does. We believe that's some of the most sophisticated labor data in the marketplace. So this is just telling them the site's ready. We also know we have to sell them on labor force, we have to sell them on transportation systems, so on and so forth. I would also be remiss to say that this was a great partnership with other departments. DNR was highly involved in this, as was Cultural Affairs and Transportation. So it was, once again, a team effort where you see great collaboration between department heads.
I would also say on the workforce, answering your workforce question, we have initiated a couple of really exciting new programs there. One is Skilled Iowa, to upgrade the skills of Iowa workers to meet the jobs that are coming. And then, of course, the bill that we have before the legislature, our top priority this session, Home Base Iowa, to attract leadership and skilled people that are coming out of the military.
These are all greenfield sites, right? They're not existing industrial parks.
Correct. These are all greenfield sites.
What were some of the projects that we might have missed out on?
I would expect you to ask that question. Well, first of all, I'm not going to speak to that, but I can tell you that we lost a major project in central Iowa, and we were actually, I would say we were the preferred site. In the end of the day, we lost it because the price of the land became a moving target. The other one we lost in southwest Iowa, and the reason we simply could not move at the speed of business. We were trying to do air model attainments at the same time that we were, trying to close a deal on a piece of land. You just simply cannot have that. And let me tell you, when the governor and I were in California last week, we met with a company that we're competing for. We're one of the finalists, which was the purpose of going out there. So we had a map on the table, and it happened to be one section of the state that we don't have a certified site, or one in process at this time. And we're looking at it saying, well, what about this piece here and this piece here? Again, we're still confident we're going to be able to land that, but how much easier would it have been had we been able to just pull up our database and say, this is exactly where you need to be and here's why. So again, we can do a better job of being ready.
We can't give you that
My
information.
lips are sealed.
I'm going to tell you a story. There's a company called Land's End in Wisconsin, and there was a time they were looking at a site in northeast Iowa, and unfortunately it got published in one of the newspapers in the state. And Tommy Thompson was the governor of Wisconsin, and he called them, and that was the end of it. They ended up staying in Wisconsin. You cannot divulge this information prematurely. It's up to the company to make that decision. We learned that lesson a long time ago. That information didn't come from the state, but it should not and cannot be leaked. I can tell you, when Harris Huntsey was on the Economic Development Board and he was a publisher of the Lake Mills Graphic, we had many projects in Lake Mills, and he never published them in the Lake Mills Graphic until the company made the decision to locate there. That is critically important if you're going to be successful in economic development. Sometimes you know things you just can't disclose until the time is right, and the right people, that is the company, are the ones that make the disclosure, not us. I hope that's clear. Other questions? Well, if there are not any further questions on this, first of all, I want to thank all the communities that have worked so hard to be certified, and thank you for being here today. Yes.
Governor, could you respond to Doug Gross's comments? You know, you've been very critical. People have been criticizing your administration and saying that these were DC-style politics. Attacks now, one of your own people, Doug Gross, has been very close to you and said there's a problem with governance. I guess, how do you respond to that? And
well,
are you going to make some changes in response? You trust his judgment, I know.
Oh, wait a minute. He has not been on my staff for 25 years, and he's clearly out of touch with what's going on in state government today. Next question. No, I'm not mad. I just think he's wrong. No, he is clearly out of touch with what's going on. But he's not been here for 25 years. I guess it's not surprising that somebody that's not been here for 25 years wouldn't know what's going on a day-to-day basis in the governor's office.
What is going on?
I can tell you we're focused on the substance of the issues before the legislature, and we're in the closing days of this session. I laid out my agenda in the condition of the state address, and we've been working diligently to get it approved. I believe we can have another successful session like we did last year. Right now, I mean, a week ago people were predicting my anti-bullying bill was dead. It has now been approved by the House of Representatives, not totally as we'd like, but significant and important improvements in public policy. Our legislation for freezing tuition for the second year in a row is on its way here for signature. I've already signed the repurposing public buildings bills with tax credits. I think we're very close to getting things worked out on our apprenticeship bill. I know we thought we had an agreement worked out on a bipartisan basis for the broadband initiative in the House of Representatives, and then Democrats went to caucus and decided to play politics. But there's a motion to reconsider, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to see bipartisan approval of the broadband initiative as well. Our top priority is home-based Iowa. That's bouncing back now from the Senate to the House. Should be on its way to my signature in the very near future. So our focus is on the substance of the issues and the policy. There will be plenty of time for politics once the session's over and we've signed the bills that have been approved this year, and I'm not worried about that. I just want to say I think my staff has done a great job. I'm really proud of what we accomplished last year. I think this year is going to be another great year. And you know, they moved very quickly. I was on vacation when that Des Moines Register wrote that article about confidentiality clauses in settlement agreements. And by the time I came back, they'd already researched and discovered how many there were, how many settlement agreements, how many had confidentiality clauses, and we developed a strategy. And the next Monday press conference, I signed an executive order banning any use of settlement agreements for the executive branch of state government and putting together a procedure where any settlement agreement has to be approved, has to be reviewed by the Attorney General's office and the agency affected, as well as the Department of Administrative Services. As you know, we've got Janet Phipps, a very well qualified, experienced administrator as the new director of that department and agency. So I think we have shown unwillingness and an ability to move quickly and do the things that are necessary for public policy. I would contrast that with Senate Democrats who have spent their time playing politics and hide behind legislative privilege on the coordination of their political attacks with regard to the actions of this oversight committee. The public should have a right to see that information as well as the information from the executive branch of government. They refuse to disclose it. And then the other biggest problem we have is they attack these settlement agreements while at the same time refusing to make public the personnel information that's in those settlement agreements. So that all has to be redacted. And that is an absolute huge loophole in the open records law. It needs to be closed. The House voted 63 to whatever, got strong bipartisan vote. Senate Democrats refuse to take that up because the people that are funding their campaigns don't want it. That is partisan politics at its worst. Other than that, I don't have an opinion.
Governor Reynolds respond to the
Well, I'm an elected official, and I am elected to represent the people of Iowa. We do it every single day as we travel across the state. I had some constituents reach out to me with some concerns. I met with them. I compiled their concerns, and I forwarded them to the director of the DOT at that time, which was Nancy Richardson. And I believe that's what you do as an elected official, is to represent Iowans. If they have a concern, it happens. We do it all the time. That's why we're out in the state. That's why we're meeting with business and industry and Iowans and families and
meetings.
school districts and town hall meetings. It's so we can get a feel of what's working and what's not working. We can take that back to the office and respond. Call the different directors of the various agencies. Say, here's a problem. Can you reach out to them? Figure out what needs to happen with it.
Should these employees who apparently gave untruthful information to, in testimony, should they be?
Wait a minute. This is exactly why we need to open up this personnel record so the public will have access to that information. You have one side's attorney goes to the press and makes an accusation, and then everybody else has to follow the law, and because it's confidential information in a personnel file. This needs to change. That's the reason why we're pushing for this change. And what the lieutenant governor did is exactly what any good public official should do. When you have constituents that have a concern, you sit down and listen to their concerns. In this case, she shared those concerns with the agency that they work for, and it's that agency's responsibility to review it. She didn't tell them what to do, but she shared the information with Nancy Richardson, the director of the department. That's what any good legislator or state elected official should do when you hear from a constituent.
It's also, I mean, it's working through the process, and that's why we have a process in place. So I believe it's what's taking place is what the process allows, and that's how it's being addressed.
Governor, on the broadband bill,
Yep.
was there an agreement with Democrats with that bill?
Yes, there was an agreement, and then they went to caucus, and for some reason they decided to lock up against it. That's a very unfortunate situation. My staff, as well as Representative County, who was managing the bill, felt they had an agreement going into the caucus, and then they decided to play politics. But I think they've heard from a lot of people that this is a big mistake. This was never a partisan issue, and it needs to be approved on a bipartisan basis, and we feel confident it will be. It's been a while. I'm just saying, he has not been on the staff for 25 years. I am the governor of Iowa. I don't get a chance to talk to everybody all the time. So I would just say he is not knowledgeable of what's going on a day-to-day basis in this office. He has his own law office that he runs. I don't try to tell him how to run that office.
Governor, are you saying if the Senate agreed to disclose the reasons employees are fired, that you support the bill they passed?
Well, I support the bill the House passed, and I think there are elements in the Senate bill which expands my executive order to the judicial and legislative branches of government, and that I could support. So yeah, there are elements in their bill that I could support. But the biggest problem, and this was pointed out by Senate Republicans, is they want to protect the people that are giving them the most money, the employee unions that don't want this information disclosed. I think because it's taxpayers' money, the people of Iowa do have a right to know why somebody is dismissed or why a settlement is reached, and I think that information should be public. It is a loophole that's been in our open records law for too long, and it's time to close it. Well, first of all, if you have this information available, the public can decide on these kinds of things. So I think that's a very important aspect of it. I'm all for protecting whistleblowers. I want to make sure that if somebody, and that's why we frankly have a citizen aid ombudsman's office in the state of Iowa and have had it for decades, is so somebody that doesn't feel they're being treated right by government has a place to go to have it investigated.
One of the reasons that say against disclosure of the records is that significant liability lawsuits.
Baloney. You got all kinds of lawsuits filed by all kinds of people, and that is a pretty bad lawyer answer. I can tell you that. Right now, look at all the lawsuits that are going on right now without having it disclosed. My opinion is, just like I supported having a group to oversee the open meetings and open records law, I think by having this open, you actually reduce the lawsuits, because then you have this stuff public. Right now, you have people playing hide the ball, making accusations, and they know the other side can't respond because it's personnel information. And there's too many people that are hiding behind that. It's been going on for way too long. It's time to let the sunshine in. I think that can do a lot of good. The people that are afraid of it are the ones that don't want that information to be released because they want to protect whoever has been guilty of this wrongdoing. The other problem with this that is very significant is when you refuse to disclose that information and you have somebody that's done something that could be dangerous, such as child abuse or elder abuse or civil rights violations, the next employer doesn't know it, could hire them, and it has happened. They hire them, and then they commit the same bad deed again. We don't need to have those things happening again and again in our state.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you.